Hey, happy belated, well, actually not belated, I guess early Happy New Year's. That's going to be what, 2 days from now? Wow, New Year's Eve's tomorrow. This year has gone by so fast, everyone. So, anyways, guys, we have something I've been waiting for to do. For the fact that this is a topic that I know so little about, it's incredible. We're going to be talking about Black Hebrew Israelites, what they believe, who they are, how to counter their arguments. The only thing I really know about Black Hebrew Israelites are basically two things. They dress funny and they yell at G-Man a lot.
They are.
That's about it. That's other than that, I really have no understanding of why they believe what they believe, why they are so angry, why they stand on the street corner, do what they do, why they wear what they wear. Although I think they're wonderfully dressed for backup dance group, but I wanted to know more about them. So what I did was I said, let's go with the people that actually know a lot about this topic. So I've invited about 6 people in here. A couple people are running late, but I got G-Man, I got Alvin, and I got Wayne. I think each one of them has a little bit to add to this topic. I'm going to start off actually with G-Man. He's going to give us a little primer information, a little background of the history of the different factions of the BHIs, and kind of get us up to speed, because I know a lot of people don't know much about who they are. I mean, we watch their debates and we watch G-Man talk to them, but I don't know what's up. I don't know what they're talking about half the time, and I don't really like that. So I figured I would just ask them, explain to us what the stuff is. So G, you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing?
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, sir. So give us the narrative on this, because I'm not kidding when I'm saying that I'm just lost about what these people actually stand for. I mean, I understand they're just anti-white. Everybody kind of knows that, but they talk a lot, but I never hear them really say what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish here.
Well, what I'll try to do here today is I'll try to explain what it is that they actually believe, and do it unbiasedly, I guess, in the beginning. And then if people want to know, I'll tell them why I disagree with them, and then how basically anybody can beat these guys in an argument. When I say beat them, I mean to show them that they're historically incorrect about what they're saying, biblically incorrect about what they're saying, and just wrong about pretty much everything that's coming out of their mouth. So first and foremost, the Black Hebrew Israelites believe that they are the biblical Israelites. They believe that they're the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, particularly Jacob, who would be renamed Israel in the book of Genesis. Promises were made to the children of Israel that if they kept the law, statutes, and commandments, that they would be a blessed people. You can see this in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 14. And from verses, 1 through 15, And then from 15 to 68 are the curses if they don't keep his commandments. So they believe that there are the biblical Israelites, that the blacks, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Hispanics are the Hebrew Israelites. And these people, and the people that mainly believe that are what we call the One Westers. This whole group started out of Harlem, from what I understand, and particularly 125th and West, from what I understand. I don't have the names of the founders per se, but I do know that a guy by the name of Peter Sherrod, or his other name is Yakad, he claimed that in a bar, an angel came and visited him and told him that the black people are the biblical Israelites. And they had, and he said that this guy had a perfect afro. So they had a conversation. The so-called angel left the bar, and he claimed that when he went after him to continue the conversation, that he couldn't find him, that he was just mysteriously disappeared. So if I'm not mistaken, him and 2 other guys started a school called the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, ISUPK, which happens to be a One West camp, one of the One West camps that I'm talking about today. There's also a Great Millstone. There's also the GOCC, the IUIC. The GOCC is the Gathering of Church Christ. I'm sorry, the Gathering of Christ Church, I'm sorry. And then IUIC is Israel United in Christ. In these particular groups, again, while they don't necessarily agree on everything regarding doctrine, the most common thing that they actually believe is that blacks are the Israelites. Some of them believe that blacks, Latinos, Native American Indians are the Israelites. So for the sake of this conversation today, or what I'm gonna do today, is I'm gonna separate these One Westers from the moderates, because moderates don't necessarily agree with what you see with the ISU. I'm sorry, with the with these One West camps. So the One Westers got some weird beliefs. So they believe that they're the biblical Israelites. They believe that white people are Gentiles, that they are the descendants of Esau. If you go to the book of Genesis, it says that God loved Jacob, but he hated Esau. And because God hated Esau, they believe, not all of the Hebrew Israelites, I'm talking about the one Westers right now, because there are some that disagree with this logic or this argument. They believe that the white man is the devil and that God hates him. As a matter of fact, Steve, you would be considered a reincarnation to a lot of them of an old slave owner from a long time ago. And they believe that they're going to enslave you and your family when Christ returns.
The southern avatar and my white beard and hair probably doesn't help alleviate that narrative.
Oh yeah,
right. Yeah.
You're not gonna hear the end of it when they see that. But yeah, they believe that you're a reincarnation of old slave owners, and eventually when Christ returns, you will be enslaved in their version of the kingdom of God. A lot of them, not all of them, a lot of the One Westers do not believe that white people can be saved. They believe that, as a matter of fact, a lot of them don't even believe in a literal hell. They believe that hell is a state of is a condition of the earth. Like if you're poor and you're always sick all the time, then you're already in hell. And they believe that black people today are already in hell today. They believe that heaven is also a condition of the earth. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They believe that that if you're rich and you're well off and you own houses and everything and whatnot, that you're in heaven. They also believe, let me see something here, that you have to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. And this is the most common thing that you see us arguing with them about. They believe that since we're Israelites, black people are Israelites, that we have to keep all of the 613 laws that are found in the Old Testament, except for the sacrificial laws. They believe that in order to be saved, you have to realize that you're an Israelite and that you have to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments. The Sabbath for some of them is on Saturday. The Sabbath for some of them starts on Friday going into Saturday. And they all got different interpretations for it. I haven't even heard all of the different interpretations.
I don't know how we could even remember the 613 mitzvahs. I mean, to be able to keep them, I don't think you would even be able to function in society or live a life. I mean, they're pretty, even the ones I just remember, because I mean, there's a lot of them, but they're really hardcore. I mean, how they actually abide by the Levitical code then.
Yeah, and it's funny because usually in a great debate, when we're arguing with people who criticize the Old Testament, those are the things that the Hebrew Israelites are saying that we should be doing today, except for like the stonings and all that, because then they'll say, "Oh, we're not in we're not in the land of Israel, so we can't stone nobody." I can't give you the rebuttal on that. I'm just giving you the unbiased, like what they believe. Now, then you got the moderates out there. The moderates, a lot of the moderates, not all of them, a lot of the moderates believe that white people can be saved, that they are not reincarnations. They believe that you're Esau, and some of them don't. I've heard a Hebrew Israelite argue that the Arabs is Esau, but they believe that white people can be saved. I think Pastor Dowell believes that they can be engrafted into the like the same way Christians believe. I don't think a lot of them believe that white people can teach the Bible though. But the moderates pretty much believe the same things that you see the One West believes, except for the fact that they don't believe in going on the street and acting like pricks when they're out there doing their thing and whatnot. Do you have any specific questions you want me to answer?
How big are these groups? I mean, what size are we looking at? Because they appear to be somewhat large when you're looking at, like, for example, when they're standing on the street corner and you're engaging with them. They seem like there's I don't want to use the word cult, but there's definitely a group that is not like one corner, another corner. So how large are we talking about?
I honestly don't know how big they are, but I believe the biggest group out of all of the One Westers is the ISUPK. I don't think it's a GOCC. As a matter of fact, GOCC might be the second biggest. And I think that theologically speaking, in terms of like their understanding of scripture, I think GMS or Great Millstone would be considered the least intellectual ones out of all of them. If you take a look at their videos, you'll understand why. GMS actually holds to the rape doctrine. I don't know if you ever heard me talk to them about that. You know, in Deuteronomy 22, when it's talking about, as a matter of fact, I should probably read that to you guys. But I know I get criticized, you know, when I'm debating other people on the rape issue in scripture, whether or not God condones it or not. But the Hebrew Israelites take Deuteronomy 22 and thinks that their interpretation on it means that when Christ returns, they're going to be raping 12-year-old girls.
Wait, okay, this is the first I've heard of this. I've just looked up Deuteronomy 22. Correct me if this is the wrong. I've just pulled it up. This is the NIV version. I don't think it really makes a difference. But if you see your fellow Israelites' ox or sheep straying, do not ignore it, but be sure to take it back to its owner. That one?
I think you're talking about. I think it's Deuteronomy. Is that the one where if you see a woman amongst the captives, you can take her in your house? What up?
Yeah.
I think that's Deuteronomy 21. 14, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that one. I remember those. Okay, so that's dealing with marrying a captive woman.
Yeah. So I believe that, and mind you, I'm not doing this to just inform like one group of people. I believe anybody can correct the Hebrew Israelites on these topics. I know a lot of atheists are familiar with Deuteronomy 22 and what this says here, because I debate a lot of them on this. All you got to do is go to those guys. I should probably save this for later. You know what? I'll save this for later. But the bottom line is they use Deuteronomy 22 to try to justify raping little girls when Christ returns, which is sick and disgusting. The Bible doesn't teach no nonsense like that. They're taking it out of context.
Wait, I'm not understanding this, because how are they getting people to even listen to them if that's something that they're putting out? I mean, unless they're trying to actively recruit pedophiles or something like that. That
they weren't
wild to me.
That's not something that like they're preaching on the corners. What happened was they were approached by this guy named Polite, and he called them out on it. He was like, "So, do y'all believe rape is acceptable, whatnot, whatever?" So I guess he was debating them, and they just came out with it and said, "Yeah." And you know, I mean, the video on YouTube, I mean,
so it's one of those things that they basically copped to, because they were going down that road of argumentation. They said, we're just going to say this, and then suffer the ramifications later. Because I mean, I would think that that's a pretty bad road that they want to go down. It doesn't really set them up to have a lot of people take interest in what they have to say. I mean, I find that mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean,
after people,
it's on YouTube. You can look at it.
After people found that out, they will leave the cult.
You would think so, right?
Well, why do women follow them though? Unfortunately, mainly because of what Alvin said. They don't talk about this on the street. They talk about this when you get in their class.
Yeah, so they're like Jehovah's Witnesses. And listen, Jehovah's Witnesses. There's a whole lot of stuff you don't hear from them when they're out like knocking on doors. But once you go into the hall, then they start talking their real doctrine, which is creepy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Scientology.
Yeah.
Like Scientology.
So they got the rape doctrine. Now, then you got groups like Israel United in Christ. They're doing some pretty wicked stuff too. What they're doing is, okay, if you're familiar with the Bible, Jesus said that that divorce is only permissible for except for marital unfaithfulness, meaning your spouse has to cheat on you in order for you to have grounds to divorce her. And even honestly, some churches don't even accept that as a reason to divorce someone, especially in Baptist churches. But Israel United in Christ, once a black man or a Latino man joins their ranks and their woman that they're with won't join the group, I think it takes up to like a week or a month, from what I understand, they'll encourage him to divorce her and let her go, even though the Bible doesn't teach something like that. So IUIC and some of their practices, they're destroying whole families in Black and Latino communities, because if a man's been with this woman a year to like 50 years or whatever, and he becomes a member of IUIC and the wife doesn't want to do it, he has to divorce her in order to stay in the group. So it's just a lot of harm that they're doing in our communities right now.
Somebody had asked in the live chat, by the way, we have quite a few people watching. I mean, it's fast approaching 100. Some people might be familiar with some of the people in here. And I know Alvin hasn't been around a long while. And Alvin and I go way back, actually. So can we kind of like just real quickly take 10 seconds for each person to kind of introduce themselves, where they stand on this, and they're kind of just their position.
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead. Go first.
Yeah, my name is G-Man. I'm founder of Preaching to the Choir Ministries. I do a show called the G Podcast, in which I regularly debunk the doctrines of the Black Hebrew Israelites, and I also go out there and deal with them in person. I have several videos on my YouTube channel that you can check out. One is very popular. G-Man shuts up the Black Hebrew Israelites in Norton, New Jersey. You can see me go out there and ask them some basic questions that they can't even answer. So I do this on a regular basis.
Yeah, that video has about 250,000 views. So it's a popular video. Yeah, Alvin, go ahead.
I have so many mixed feelings about this whole topic because you do have the people we're just talking about where, you know, they're talking about rape and it's all okay, but then you have other people that don't subscribe to anything at all and condemn them. And in my position is this, like, I am claiming descent from the people of the Bible. I call myself a Yahudi or a Jew, you know, but the thing is that you have some people, Black people in America, who may come from Ethiopia, they may come from Morocco, you know, or you know, or even Egypt, and they are Jews by that way, and they're saying, okay, yes, I'm a Jew, I'm a descendant of the people of the book because my ancestors descend from these regions over here. But then you have groups of people saying they're Jews because of Deuteronomy 28:68, right? So you have a variety of different groups claiming to be Jews, not just the Black people in America, but really all around the world. So then it becomes a thing about doctrines, and then is you know, there's almost so many different doctrines just within this. It's almost as vast as Christianity itself.
You didn't really introduce yourself, Alvin, though. Because people don't remember you. No offense, you haven't been around a while.
Oh yeah,
we know who you are, but could you just real quick tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Alvin. I'm a believer in the book. You know, I believe in the Messiah, Old Testament, New Testament, the whole thing.
You don't have a channel, right?
No, I don't have a channel.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Alvin used to go back to the old days of the Nadia hangouts and stuff like that. If you guys remember back in those days, but anyways, okay, moving on. So Wayne, introduce yourself and
Hey guys, can
on this.
you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
All right,
Still can hear you.
Yep.
Yes.
So, of course, as you guys know, I'm Wayne, and I'm actually pretty new to the topic. This isn't something I necessarily deal with. So I deal with more like evolution and Big Bang cosmology and stuff like that. But I find the topic interesting because I didn't know there were so many Black people in the United States who are willfully scientifically ill-educated on purpose. So it's kind of scary. I deal with taking people out of cults and conspiracy theories. With me being an ex-younger creationist, I definitely want to help other people come out of different cults. And the Black Hebrew Israelite religion is definitely a cult, in my opinion. And if I can help, you know, at least one person get out, it's
Okay, and you know, putting all the you know, the science stuff aside, I think that it seems to be that everybody kind of does look at the Black Hebrew Israelites so far and does agree that if not a cult is definitely cult-like, to say the least. But let's kind of focus on that aspect of it. General, are you there? I saw you sneak in. I see you unmuted, but I can't hear you. General, you're talking because we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. All right, go ahead. So introduce yourself.
Hey,
Where do you stand on all this?
I'm Han Solo, and yeah, the topic is new to me as well. But interestingly, it's actually quite an old topic that's been discussed since the 1950s. It stems from a more nationalistic and ethnic sort of argumentation, and it's on the fringe side of ancient Near Eastern studies that you know, the Israelites were black, Negro men, and there's some form of special connection with the type of God that they worship. In this case, Yahweh is the black God. Interestingly, this spills over into Islam, as you have the Nation of Islam who take Allah as a black man. They believe he's a black man, a black deity. So you have variations of this idea, and I guess the people that G-Man interact with take on a more quote-unquote Christian label. So yeah, I'm just interested to hear what G-Man has to say on that.
Yeah, and I am too. And before we get back to G-Man, 1 second, Alvin, just before we went on air, you had something that was a brilliant insight. And so before I turn it back over to G-Man, so he can continue on this, real quickly, do you remember what you said? Because I thought it was just so well said. And you probably won't remember what you said, but if you do you? Alvin? Oh, well, we'll have to get back to him. It's a shame because I really wanted him to like say what he said just before we went on air. Is really good insight on all this. But anyways, G-Man. So when was the first time you actually interacted with these people? When was the first time you said, I have to do something about this? And I understand you're looking at a perspective that, you're Christian, so you have your own story and your own beliefs, and that what they're saying conflicted with it. But when was it you just said, hey, this, regardless of somebody's belief, whether you're Christian, atheist, Muslim, whatever you believe, that they're putting out stuff that is dangerous?
Okay. I'll answer the first question first. When I first dealt with them, I think it was back in 2000 or 2001. I think I dealt with them for the very first time, way before I got on YouTube. I saw them on the street. I didn't really know what to say to them except for God so loved the world. That was pretty much it. You know what I mean? I had a brief encounter with them, walked away, didn't know who they were until I actually got on YouTube. What made me say I had to do something about this, I need to start making some videos about them. It's just two reasons. One of them was I was watching a YouTube video, and I'm an evangelist. I go out there and I talk about people's need for Jesus and how people need to repent. But I also respect the fact that they don't want to believe in him. If they say no, you can't force somebody not to believe. You know what I mean? You go on, to the next person. I saw the Hebrew Israelites out there, doing their thing and whatnot on the video. And this woman who was carrying her baby, they was talking down to her so much that that they made her look and I guess even feel the way she was talking in the video. They made her feel like she was nothing. They was calling her B's and H's, calling her all kinds of derogatory words that they believe is okay to use. And they even had one woman get on her knees and kiss their feet. And that utterly disgusts me.
Huh?
I said something, yeah. They had a white woman hit on her knees and kiss their feet.
Well, first of all, why would this person do that?
They believed the message. That's
wow.
what it was. And unfortunately, and this is true for a lot of people, simply don't know what these people believe, and they don't know where these people are getting their doctrines from. There are some people out there who are informed with them historically, but most people just don't got the foggiest idea what the heck these people believe in and what they're all about. This is why I'm part of a group right now where we're trying to normalize it and make it known for people to know what they believe and to show them how to just completely shut them down and shut them up. And let me explain what I mean by shutting them up. I'm not talking about where you just get them to just be quiet and they don't talk no more. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean to get them to stop teaching you, to stop explaining their doctrines to you, to stop trying to convert you. And there are things that you can do to stop them from doing that. So I'm hoping I can share that with both.
So you mean if they're on the street accosting you, there's something you can do where they're just going to leave you alone?
Yes. Even
okay,
you can
okay. Yeah, no, I'm curious. I mean, I don't live in those kind of areas, and I people know I don't really get out much. Around here, that's nothing. I don't think I could go anywhere within a 500-mile radius to find a group like this on the street corner. You probably could walk around the corner. I mean, you seem to go from one corner to another, and there's one group and there's another group. So yeah, I'm kind of curious, what would somebody say to them where they'd just be not interested anymore? Because I think it's harassment at some point. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they have a right to do it. I do believe that they have a right to say whatever they want. But if there's ways to people can not be accosted by that, yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah, Steve, it's not just harassment; it's also hate speech too. A lot of the stuff
Clearly,
out there.
clearly, yeah. Clearly.
But the funny thing is, they can stand in front of banks while they're in business and spew out this hate speech without having a permit. And I find that to be very, very suspicious. And I've been saying that for a long time, that they can stand in front of a bank and say that white people are garbage and trash. We're going to rape your kids and all this other stuff and whatnot. You know what I mean?
I think that goes beyond free speech. Yeah. Okay, when they start saying certain things, I do believe there's a limitation on certain things that cause harm, especially when there's potential that kids are around and things like that. I really believe people have the right to say what they want, but there's got to be something that we limit where what they're saying is completely offensive.
I agree
but that's a judgment call, right? Would you agree?
100%, 100% on that one. So
it's really hard on that, though. I mean, because you want to walk that fine line, right? You don't want to like shut down free speech, but I don't think they have a right to say racist, hateful comments in a public like that. I just maybe I'll take argumentation for that, but right now, I think that as a society, it does more harm than good to have that kind of free speech. But I could change my position on that if people are.
It makes black people look hypocritical because we're sitting there crying and complaining about what the KKK is doing, but then we're going out there and doing it ourselves. It makes us look very hypocritical when they're doing that.
It's odd. Yeah, it really is. I mean, again, I would never say that the KKK can't exist. I can't say that they can't say the spewing racial stuff. I get that. But when they advocate violence, or you talking about rape, that takes it to a different level. When they start advocating things like that, then I'm like, that's no longer covered in free speech, in my opinion.
Exactly. I'm gonna give you a link here in the side chat if you want to give it to your audience. There's a YouTuber by the name of Keith Thompson. He's a Calvinist, and he made a documentary against the Black Hebrew Israelites. It's the Black Hebrew Israelites being debunked, and it gives you the history and pretty much how to on a historical basis completely debunk everything that's coming out of their mouth. But
they're so pretty though. Look at those. Oh my goodness, they're all
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just to say they all like color coordinated and purple. And is that is it purple because of the royalty? Is that the symbolism for that?
Yeah, I think that's why they wear it. Yeah. It's kind of dangerous because these people walk past my jobs now. They know who I am. Their captains and their generals tell them not to talk to me. Both members of GMS and IUIC know where I work. They walk past my job all the time. And one guy actually was in the car looking at me like he was like ready to blow my head off while he was driving away.
Now, do you think these could be violent groups? I don't know how. I mean, no offense, I don't know how you don't get punched by one of these guys. I mean, you're in their face. They yell at you consistently. Well, you know what? They're very calm, and then when they go over that edge, you can tell when they get more boisterous. But have you ever been physically accosted by them?
Yeah. Yes, they've been physically. They physically tried a couple of things on me. The ones that's in Irvington, New Jersey, for example, they. Well, first of all, the Bible says that if somebody asks you for a cup of cold water, you're supposed to give it to them, because if you're doing it, if they give it to you, it's like you're doing it unto Jesus. So I asked them for a cup of cold water. They put the water near me, and then they poured it out right in front of me. I got all that on camera, and then one of them shoved me, said he was going to kill me or something like that if I didn't leave him alone or whatever. He was going to beat me up or whatever. And then I had another time where the guy stuck right up to my face and told me if I didn't cut the camera off and leave them alone, he was going to attack me or whatever. And then there was a time when I was in New York where they tried to get a little physical with me. So I know what to say to them, and I know what to do to them, because I know that there's an audience watching, and I know they're trying to convince them that they're right and that I'm wrong. And I keep reminding them that the day they put their hands on me, no one's going to listen to them anymore. You know what I mean? It's a risky thing, but it works with them a lot.
Now, most of these groups know you by now then, right?
Oh, yeah. As soon as I show up and they realize I'm G-Man, most of the time they're captains or it's either a group is prepared to deal with me, or the group altogether is ordered by their generals and captains to just ignore me if I come out there. But it backfires, because then that audience that they build around themselves, I get to talk to them and say, listen, this is why they're lying. And then they have to deal with me.
Right. So, they have to counter what you're telling the people listening, right?
Right. So I just wanted to briefly talk about what General Han Solo was talking about them believing that God is black, because they believe that, and they use a chapter and verse in the book of Revelation where they say that his hair was like wool. And then what they'll do is they'll start using like the like a certain type of psychology on you and say, well, what people do you know have hair like wool? You know what I mean? And then the person automatically believes it's black. But the funny thing is, people don't read what the verse is saying. The verse is saying that they have hair that is white like wool. It didn't say that the hair was wool. It was white like wool. And there's little things like that they get away with when they're out there on the streets teaching their things. And they deceive a lot of people into believing that God is black, that Jesus was black that way. And that since he was a black man, you should be proud of being an Israelite because Christ only died for you, and and things like that and whatnot. But when we get to the portion where I can show you guys what to say to them, it doesn't matter what color you are, you're just going to shut them up. Doctrine.
Now, I mean, let's for this hangout. Let's say that if Jesus did exist, General. I mean, you've done some actual research in this area. If Jesus did exist, he would have been what kind of skin tone? Based upon the
he would have been you would have been Middle East.
You're roboting hard.
Can I?
There we go. There we go. Yeah.
Okay, one sec. Okay, how about now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
And then,
he would be of sorry?
Go ahead.
Yeah, he would be of a tanned complexion, like a Middle Eastern Greek tan complexion, that sort of skin tone. He wouldn't be black, like he wouldn't be specifically like an Afrocentric sort of ethnic background. He would be basically, he wouldn't be white, but he would be quite. He would be a light brown man,
like a Middle Eastern, or I think man puts it as a ready red or something. Do you agree with that?
No, I would go more in line with like a nice tan skin tone.
Okay.
Like a brownish. Just look at, for example, you have currently have Greeks who, because of their position at the moment, and also with the way, meteorologically speaking, the weather has changed and so on in say in Greece. So today people are more prone to having a more natural tan looking skin tone. That was the case in Jerusalem, back in the 1st century.
So this the Afrocentric version, you think, is just something that they're just trying to add on to their whole thing, that this is all that blacks can be saved, whites can't be saved. And again, I really wish Alvin was back, because he said something along these lines, that this was some kind of not retaliation, but what did you guys remember what he said before we went on air? It was so good.
It
was good, wasn't it?
He basically said black people are upset at white people, and so because these people in the Middle East, they look like they're oppressors, they're also upset with them too.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, it's more like that since they can't go after the people that were oppressing people back then, because certain people look that way now, they're taking it out on them. Unfortunately, right? I mean, because I don't believe that we're held accountable for the sins of the past in that regard. I think we should learn from them, and I think we should be, contrite about it. But I'm not going to take responsibility if my great grandfather happened to have been in a plantation over, which, by the way, I have no relatives in the South, so that should count Kansas.
I was meaning to say like an olive skin tone is the euphemism for that sort of thing. So
you want to add on that real quick, G?
I would say that the Israelites were probably ruddy red and that their skin was dark. I don't let them argue that the Israelites were just black mainly, and probably some of them were because of what we're going to talk about a little bit later. But they can't say that all of them are like or like my complexion or like Alvin's complexion. You know what I mean? Mainly because that as a matter of fact, when we start getting into the rebuttals of the Hebrew Israelites, I'll show you a couple of things in the book of Genesis and Deuteronomy and some things on why they're wrong. But an important scripture to bring up on why they believe that they're the Israelites in Deuteronomy 28 verse 68. You guys have heard them mention this a bunch of times. I think you have, Steve, right? Where it says, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I have spake unto thee, that thou shalt see it no more again. And then there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondsmen and bondswomen, and no man shall buy you." They use this to try to argue that historically that the Israelites all went to Africa, and then during the transatlantic slave trade, these Israelites were brought over here because they're not Africans according to them. These Israelites were brought over here on slave ships, and they was enslaved here. And they're saying, well, what people do you know? And there's a whole bunch of curses here in Deuteronomy 28, but this is the main verse I want to talk about here, because they try to argue that Egypt, and it does mean this, Egypt in Hebrew means America. Okay, but it's spelled a little bit different. I think it's spelled with a K. So they'll try to say that that because they wasn't supposed to go back to Egypt on ships, they'll try to argue that this means that the blacks that were Israelites that were in Africa were brought over here on slave ships, and that's why blacks in America are Israelites, which is a really dumb argument to me, and I'll get into the reasons why. But this is important because a lot of them will run to this. Deuteronomy 28 is a very, very, very important part of their line of argumentation for them to prove that they're Israelites, because they also believe that black people are cursed, according to the curses in Deuteronomy 28. And I want to encourage everybody that's listening to this today to read Deuteronomy 28, particularly verse 15 to verse 68. Normally, I would say for a laugh on the G podcast, but read it and then look at what they're claiming is following only black people, Latinos, and Native American Indians. It's a really interesting read. Because a lot of these things are already fulfilled already, but they believe that these things are on black people today, which is just ridiculous.
I think that the strangest thing that I comes from all this is that the Christian faith is generally the narrative that Christ died for people's sins and that all people can be saved, that he was here for everybody. That's what I learned growing up, right? I've never heard of anything other than that. I don't think for the life of me I can remember a single Christian that did not put forth that Christian message, is that Christ died for our sins and that belief in him you could be saved. And then I hear there's a group out there that says no, there's just one group can be saved. And by the way, I would have never heard of these people if it wasn't for you. I don't think a lot of people probably would have heard of these people, and putting them in the limelight, I think here is actually a very good thing. But for the other Christians in the room, how do they actually reconcile that perspective, which to me seems extremely counter to any Christian message that has been around for since 2000 years?
Yeah, believe it or not, Steve, Augustine, back in the 4th century, so we're talking a while back, he himself had to deal with this Afrocentric argument that was cropping up. So I can give you quotes. So Augustine's like, well, you claim God comes from Africa, like, literally. And it's that phrase that's quite remarkable, that it's remarkable that this discussion was even happening back in the early church. But he very clearly refutes that point in regards to the theology of the New Testament. That is, any form of ethnic division, in this case between the Jews and the Gentiles, the wall of hostility has been completely demolished. And so in Jesus, there's a new humanity where every tribe, every tongue will, come as one. So the book of Hebrews, which G-Man, I'm sure, uses with his discussions with these people, is, it's a book that's dedicated to this argument that, okay, I don't care if you're a Jew, or I don't care if you're a Greek, or I don't care if you're this or that. The point is, in Christ, whether you're male or female, everyone is equal and free in Jesus. So this discussion actually goes back to the early church, which is quite interesting.
Wayne, did you want anything on that? Wayne? I guess not. Okay. Real quick, gee, that video that you had put the link in. I'm kind of like, I'm not playing it per se because I don't want to have the audio in the background, but I'm looking through different slides in here, and like one of the first things I notice is that they have each tribe of Israel, and then they assign a certain type of ethnicity to it.
Yes. It's called the 12 tribe chart you're looking at, or you're looking at?
Yeah. Judah, American blacks, Benjamin, West Indian blacks, Levi, Haitians, Ephraim, Puerto Ricans, etc.
Yeah, and then that's where they're going with the blacks, Native American, Indians, and Latinos. That 12 tribe chart has been debunked a billion times, but one of the ways, if you was walking down the street and you wanted to debunk the chart, all you got to do is ask them, how do you know you're an Israelite? That's all you got to do. If you ask them that question, they're going to go to Deuteronomy 28. They're going to take a couple other verses out of context, and it's not difficult to show them why they're wrong. But Deuteronomy 28 is their favorite. They're going to claim that blacks was brought over here on slave ships. They're going to claim America is Egypt. And when you start pressing them and asking them, like, how do you know this? They don't have an answer for you. You know, as a matter of fact, Steve, is it okay for me to go into the rebutting part about how to deal with it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So even before I get to that, let me first deal with this issue about the white man being the devil. All right.
G-Man, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody doesn't really know the Bible like that. They're not really well versed in the Bible. Or what if they don't believe the Bible, but they also know that the Hebrew Israelites is bunk? What do they say or do?
Well, if a person doesn't believe the Bible, well, okay, if they haven't read it, then you're in trouble, because then all you have to go on is what they're saying. So if you got a pen and paper, I can show you what to do, even if you never even read the Bible. But it's still going to be hard for you unless you actually take some time out to read something in it. You know what I mean? But I'm convinced even atheists can shut them up on some of these arguments. Number one, they'll claim that the white man is the devil. Okay. In order for them to prove that, they have to go into scripture and show you that this is the case. But when they're on the street, most of the time they're talking about the white person's sin. They're talking about how the white people enslaved people. They're talking about who created nuclear bombs. They're talking about who put drugs in our community and all this other ridiculous stuff and whatnot. And they'll identify them as the devil. Now, it depends on whether or not you're in the classroom setting or if you're outside. Mainly when they're outside, they're pointing out every evil thing a white person's ever done. Even if you don't know the Bible, all you got to do is listen to what they say and remember one black person that has done the exact same thing. For example, look at all the people white people have murdered. Black people have murdered people too. I can name some of the top of my head. You know what I mean? And when you point them out, it shows, okay, so they're equal, right? Black and white people are the only people that enslave our people throughout history. That's not true. Black people have enslaved black people. As a matter of fact, if they're going to claim to be Israelites, and I know the atheists are very familiar with this, you know that slavery is in the Bible. And you know that Israelites had slaves. So if God is going to punish the white man for having slaves, why is God not going to punish the Israelites for having slaves? You understand what I'm saying? And when you argue like that, you can point out, look, you've done the same things that I've done.
Yeah, it's quite hypocritical to say the least, right?
Yes. So if the white man is the devil, then so is the black man. He's the devil too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that doesn't work for the thing that they're trying to put out. That they have to admit to that, right? So.
Oh yeah, it makes them look bad, particularly in front of the people that are listening to them.
And when you point that out to them, is that when they start kind of upping their belligerent attitude toward you? Because I notice things start off kind of tense, but not that bad. But as you kind of point out things to them, you can tell they get frustrated. They're flustered when you're around.
You got to remember something. They're racist, so it depends if you're black or white. I hate to say it, but it's true. Because I'm black and I'm dealing with them, they have more patience with me. If a white person did that to them, they'll be enraged and will try to get you on a different point. You know what I mean? And we'll talk really low to you. They'll say that they'll call you all kinds of F's and B's and everything else in the book if you get them on that point. They'll say that the Bible is not for you. They won't let you talk. They'll dominate everything in order to try to make you look bad before they finally try to get rid of you. You know,
I can see that. I can see that. But here's the thing. Look at it this way, G. Because you are a black man and they're black and they're putting forth this Afrocentric thing, and here you are putting out information contrary to what they're saying. Yes, they have to obviously, you know, they're going to treat the people they are racist against a little bit different, but they're probably more steamed when you counter their arguments, because now they're the other people around are going, hey, well, these guys are saying one thing, but hey, this guy's black too, and he's saying something completely different. That's
Exactly.
got to bother them, I'm sure.
Yeah, and a lot of them are taking certain measures not to talk to me no more. Like the ones in Irvington, as soon as I show up, they call the police. We don't give you permission to record us. We don't want to deal with you. We don't want to answer your questions. Because every time I go, they're asking the same questions that I think everybody else should be asking them. And it's, how do you know that you're an Israelite? We've already answered that question. I say, no, you've never proven that to me. How do you know you're an Israelite? And then they go back to Deuteronomy chapter 28, and I show them, look, that is not for us. You know what I mean? I have ways a Christian can argue with them and end the conversation very quickly with them, because they're identifying themselves with curses, whereas Christians are identifying themselves with blessings. If an atheist argues with them, and let's say the atheist happens to be black and they're arguing with them, all the atheist has to do is to show that one of those curses are not on them. That's all you got to do. One of the curses that are found in Deuteronomy chapter 28, actually, it's kind of funny, that you'll buy a house, but you'll never live in it. Now, you can call me dumb or whatever, but I'm pretty sure LeBron James owns a house and he lives in it. As a matter of fact, he wouldn't even be in hell. According to the Hebrew Israelites, he would be in heaven because he's so rich and wealthy and everything. You know what I mean? So it would completely and totally contradict what it is that they're saying.
Yeah.
Can I ask G-Man a question on Deuteronomy 28? Specifically, what in 28? Like, are there any specific highlights that the Hebrew Israelites will fixate on in that chapter that will?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe go ahead. You know what I'm talking about.
You got to read from verse 15 to verse 68. That's a lot of reading. I can do it if you want,
yeah.
But the main one that they focus on is verse 68. That is their favorite. That's their favorite, because they believe that this proves the is proof that they're Israelites.
Verse 68.
Verse 68, and it says, this is Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. It says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondsmen and bondswomen, and no man shall buy you, which is ridiculous, because during the transatlantic slave trade, and I say this on the outside all the time, that during the transatlantic slave trade, we have documents to prove this, black people were bought with money in this country. You know, so they claim that nobody did. The verses there is claiming that no man will buy you. And historically speaking, from what I understand, the Romans tried to send some of the Israelites to Africa, and that's actually where it happened. There was no room in the country. No one would actually pay for them or buy them, because in their law, if they was in a position of a financial debt or whatever, or they broke a law or something like that, they could be put into slavery, or they could be made into like a bondsman or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So that was provided in the law, and it was meant as a humiliation to the Jews, that when they were brought over to another country and that no one bought them, that would be seen as a humiliation toward them. Right. So I try to point that out when I'm talking to them. A lot of times they'll ask me to state my sources, but I'm outside in the street. One hand I got my phone. The other hand, I'm trying to go in my pocket to find some verses that I wrote down when I'm dealing.
Do they ever have an insight into, in this case, what Deuteronomy is about? Because it's a second recounting of the law to a new generation of Israelites who have come out of Egypt, and do they acknowledge that context in light of?
Knowledge is the Torah. Yeah. That's about it. When they're outside, they're letting you know what the law, statutes, and commandments, and what the punishments were, and the blessings that are found in the Torah. They don't go through all of that. You have to go to their classroom for them to even act like they know what they're talking about regarding that. Because when you go to their classroom, that's when they could do a verse by verse by verse breakdown of what it is that they believe.
Right. So they completely ignore the context of the entire book. Right. Okay. Which is quite fascinating, because here's something that's being mentioned by Moses, 3,400 years ago, and somehow that is applicable to Black Americans in the 21st century, which and G-Man will agree that's nonsensical. It makes no sense.
Oh yeah, it's beyond ridiculous, because again, they're supposed to keep the law, right? But now this is another way that you debunk them. And then I'll get to some of the other things that they'll say, that you're supposed to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. All you got to do is ask them two questions. First thing is, which laws am I supposed to keep? They're going to say you're supposed to keep all of the laws except for the sacrificial laws. Okay. The next question you're going to ask them, and it's going to irritate them, you ask them, do you tithe? Or how do you tithe?
Right. Oh, so when it comes to the money, it's like, oh, well, that part we just ignore. We don't need that, right?
Yeah.
Is that true? They don't have any time tithing?
Well, don't get me wrong. ISUPK encourages their people to tithe, but not according to the law. You understand what I'm saying? According to the law, they're supposed to go into their backyard or into their flock and get get a tenth of their sheep and give that away, or the tenth of their grain, not money. The only time you give money away is when a place is too far that you sell your offering for money, and then you're supposed to buy whatever your heart lusteth after, and you're supposed to celebrate before the Lord. That's what the Bible actually says. It doesn't say that you get that 10% to the Black Hebrew Israelites or the Israelites. And then on top of that, you're supposed to give it to the Levites if you were to do it.
Oh, really? It was just to the Levites?
Yeah, you were supposed to give to the Levites, and the Levites were supposed to get 10% to the I believe to the storehouse, if I'm not mistaken. So the Hebrew Israelites, they like to say you're supposed to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. And that's only one thing that you can ask them about the tithe. The next thing that you can ask them, and it's a lot of laws, it takes about maybe 50 to 70 laws. You can ask them about the death penalty. Because 613 start getting really, really small when you start pointing out all the things they can't do here in America.
Do they have a justification? What is their justification for not the offerings any longer?
They don't have one. They call you a coon at that point and try to kick you out, say that you're a troublemaker, and they don't want to have a conversation about that. Not the one Westers. The moderates, however, will get into it with you because they'll end up agreeing with you. It's a lot, not all, but there's a lot of the one Westers that will call you a coon and say that you're going against the prophets and you need to get lost or whatever.
How does the average person know what group that they're even talking to, or what group that's on the street corner? It seems to be so many different factions. How the hell do you know which one's which?
Well, there's a couple of things you can do. As far as knowing who the ISUPK is, IUIC, or Israel United in Christ, the ISUPK are the ones that usually wear the black when they're out there. And I believe AOC wears black too. And then you got the members of IUIC that wears purple. A lot of times when you're going outside and you're listening to them, they will tell you what group they're part of. They'll be like, we're the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, and we're here to preach this message or to share this truth to you people, to the blacks, Native American, Indians, and Hispanics, you Israelites, that you're supposed to keep God's law, statutes, and commandments. And then they'll go on this long tirade about how the white man's evil and how God's going to destroy him and destroy America, and how black people need to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, But you can ultimately walk up to them and ask them which camp they're part
of. We have one quick question before we go into your, shutting them down, because I am curious on that. But somebody had to ask, and I think it's a legit question, although I don't know much about this other group either. But they say, ask G-Man if Black Hebrew Israelites evangelize to the Nation of Islam folks.
Actually, they do. They do. It's usually an aggressive conversation, but they do. Yes, they do.
Now, the Nation of Islam, though, they're not in the same mindset that only a specific group can be saved, right? If I remember correctly, the Nation of Islam is not really even that a religious group. They were more political, weren't they?
No, they're religious.
I thought they were more of a religious political group.
They're a form of Islam, but the Black Hebrew Israelites believe that well, some of them anyway believe that that the ones that practice Islam are biblical Israelites, and just like they believe that Black Christians are Israelites, and that the church has been lying to us for years, and that we need to leave the church and join the Israelites to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. They have a lot of weird beliefs about what Christianity is and what we believe and what we've been taught. Like, for example, some of them told me that when Christmas came, I was going to be celebrating Santa Claus you know, and things like that and whatnot. And I don't even know atheists that do that. So
If you could be, wait, you're gonna be celebrating Santa Claus?
yeah, I told them that I'm going to celebrate the birth of Christ, and they immediately think that means that I'm going to have a Christmas tree in my house. I'm going to have like I'm going to be thinking, I'm going to be teaching my kids that Santa Claus is going to be coming down the chimney, you know, and things like that and whatnot. And most Christians don't do that. I'm not saying we all don't, but most of us don't. Most of us are upfront with our kids about Christmas and where they get their presents from and everything.
Okay. Do you want to go into, you know, how if you are approached by these people? And again, I know they're only in certain areas. In fact, why don't you tell the areas that you generally find them, and then what people should do if they do run into them?
Okay, so let's say, Steve, you're walking down the street, right? I'm not even going to use a Christian or somebody else. Someone else. Say you're walking down the street and you see them talking to someone on the street and whatnot, and they say that hell is, I'm sorry, that the white man is the devil. Okay, I'm gonna show you what you can do. If they say that the white man is the devil, ask them to define what a devil is, or ask them to tell you why you're the devil. And just like we said before, they're gonna point out all of the evil things that you've done, and you can show that black people have done the same thing, but they're still gonna say that you're the devil. What you got to do is you have to show them that in the Bible that the devil is supposed to be a spiritual being. I believe it's in, let me see something here. 2 Corinthians, if I'm not mistaken. General Han Solo, are you there?
Yep.
Yeah, is that 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, where it says that the God of this world has blinded the minds of those?
Yeah, 2 Corinthians 4, verse 4. Yeah.
Yeah, you can actually go over there and use that verse to them and start an argument with them and say that, well, I'm not the devil, because the devil will be considered the God of this world. And you can show them 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. And General Han Solo, do you know what that scripture is that says that I saw Satan kicked out of heaven? Isn't that in Revelation chapter?
That's in Luke 10.
Yeah, Luke 10, and then Revelation it talks about how.
And Revelation 12 would be when Satan is cast out. So I saw Satan fall like lightning in Luke 10, and
right.
Revelation 12 would be the other one. Yeah.
You can use the one in Luke 10 and then Revelation 12 to point out that Satan was kicked out of heaven. Okay? What you got to do is you got to be able to take the 3 verses I gave you and be able to show them right off the back that the devil can't be human because he was kicked out of heaven. Obviously, they're going to try to argue that heaven is a condition of the earth, and you can show them other verses where Jesus ascended into heaven. So it can't be a condition of the earth.
I mean, so they're literally saying that the white man is, I mean, this is not just a metaphor. They are actually saying the white man is
you're the devil. You're the most wickedest thing that ever existed on the planet.
But is it a metaphor? I mean, are they using that as a label to say this, you know, all white people are wicked, or do they actually think there's something more spiritual involved, that that person is like demonically possessed, or is a devil, or some kind of thing that goes beyond the materialism?
There's something called the demon seed doctrine. Now, I don't want to get into that now. Maybe we could do that another day.
Well, that sounds pretty cool, actually. The demon seed doctrine. I have not heard of that.
But
I'll throw a comment.
Oh, now Alvin's back.
It's ridiculous in the sense that, I'm sorry, Alvin. Go ahead.
Now, here's the interesting thing. The first Hebrew Israelite, well, that went by, I don't think they call themselves Hebrew Israelites, but they did refer to themselves as Hebrews, is a church back in 1896 by a guy named William Crowdy. And this is like basically the old quote unquote Black Hebrew Israelite church, you know, ever recorded, right? And they didn't have any of that doctrine. You know, it was all men are created equal. They did believe they are the descendants of the biblical Israelites, but like most things, you know, there's a starting point somewhere, and then as it grows, it starts morphing into different things. You know, and then you have the commandment keepers also, who was mostly consistent of like West Indian people, like, you know, like Caribbean people, and the Caribbeans claiming that they're also Israelites, but they're more closer to like what we would think of like Rastafarians or whatever. And they also didn't really have, you know, all white people are the devil thing. So I think the the whole animus, the extreme view of all white people being evil is something that came, later on, like mid 20th century.
I don't understand how their positions can be tenable in the future, because the reality is, I think there's going to be such a point where it's going to be indistinguishable, pretty much, to tell who's from what anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, do they think that? I mean, do they have like a limit where they say, okay, you have so much, and I know this is completely wrong to put it this way, but okay, you're so much, you're 100% white. Okay, you're 50% white, 50% black, or whatever. Do they have some percentage to say, okay, well, you're not white enough to be damned, or you're black enough to be saved, something like that?
It's actually even more complex than this. Like, let's take you, Steve. No offense, but it doesn't appear.
I'm screwed regardless. I already got that.
It doesn't appear that you have that much melanin in your skin. I mean, just based off looking at you, right? But
yeah, I used to have a decent tan. Go back a few years.
but watch this. Let me tell you how it gets complex. If you look like how you are, but if you can demonstrate to me that your great grandfather is a black man, you're welcomed into the ISUPK.
Doesn't that
looking exactly how you look right now?
How would that work? Because look, if I convinced you and I convinced a few other people, now I'm standing there, I'm whiter than hell in a group of dark-skinned people, and they're all bashing on white people.
There's white people in their organization.
Yeah. What?
They have this guy, Kadazak, and he is white, a redhead at that. But I think he's proven that his it's either his grandfather or his great grandfather was black or Puerto Rican, one of those. And because he descends from a black man through his father's lineage, he's considered one of them. So it is a little bit more complex between white and black, because if you're white and if you can demonstrate that let's say your great grandfather was a black man, you can join GMS, ISUPK, all of those things, regardless of how you look like. So it gets a little, it's kind of tripped out a little bit.
It's strange to think that like melanin is a salvational issue. I would have never been able to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily melanism, more in you are what your father is. That's what you hear them say most of the time. You are what your father is. So if you look like how you do, Steve, but your great granddaddy was black, then you good.
By the way, we have a lot of people watching, and I am paying attention to the live chat. We are going to have a debate one of these days if gingers have souls or not. I think that's a worthy discussion to have a debate on. Well, so if you're on either side of that issue, because everyone right now is arguing whether gingers have souls or not. They stopped paying attention to us for a few seconds.
You know what? I'm mixed on that position.
No, you can't be agnostic on this issue, man.
Let me share with you guys how to distribute this nonsense that the Israelites were black. There's a couple of things that you need to do, though.
Okay.
You got to go get the definition of what it means to be ruddy. I know that General Marcelo talked about this a little bit about what the complexion of Jesus might have been when he was here. And I'm sure he has some documentation for that, because most people who have studied this believe that Jesus was probably a darker color or whatever. But you got to get the definition of what the word ruddy means. And there's a lot of trickery going on here when you're dealing with them. But let me show you what I mean here. Okay, the definition of ruddy means this. Number one, noun, of a red color, red or reddish, as a ruddy sky or a ruddy flame. Okay. Number two, it is a noun of a lively flesh color or the color of human skin in high health, as ruddy cheeks or lips. And then number three, it means to make ruddy. If you remember these, then you can write down these verses and keep them in your pocket and deal with them. You can say, listen, the Israelites were not black. They were ruddy red. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 12. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 42. All say, both those verses say that King David himself was ruddy red and that he was not black. Genesis chapter 25 and verse 25 says that Esau, the father of the so-called white man, that Esau was ruddy red himself. So that he was hairy and red all over. But by the time you get the Song of Songs, chapter 5, verse 10, and Lamentations, chapter 4, verse 7, they're talking about the Israelites being white, being as white as snow. Let me read it to you so that you guys can see what I'm talking about when you're dealing with these guys. Let me go to the Lamentations one. Here we go. Lamentations chapter 4, verse 7. I'm going to read it from the KJV. You can use a different translation. It's going to say the same thing pretty much. It says, her Nazarites were purer than snow, and they were whiter than milk. They'll try to argue the purer thing there and say that's about their, about them being wholesome and being holy. But then it says that they were whiter than milk, and it's talking about their physical appearance. And their bodies were more ruddy than coral, and their appearance like sapphire. In none of those examples do you ever get black. You understand? And when you go back to the definition of what
sorry, G-Man, sorry for cutting. That Lamentations one is a really good one. 4 verse 7.
Yeah, and the second definition for ruddy is this: of a lively flesh color or the color of human skin in high health. You got to remember that one, because what they're going to do is they're always going to refer to the first definition of a red color or reddish or a ruddy sky. No, actually I got that backwards. It's the first definition that you need of a red color, red or reddish or a ruddy sky. That's the one that you need to remember when you're trying to argue that they're red, because they're going to argue of a lively flesh color. Like they're going to be talking about like them being in high health, or like being radiant in their appearance. You know what I mean? Like being awake, or like being with vigor.
So let me address a couple things. So the ethnicity of the Jews is even a more complex situation, right? So I would be, and I would even tell Israelites to be careful when they're using terms like black, white, and red. In the ancient world, they didn't have phrases like, oh, you're a white man, oh, you're a black man. That paradigm is fairly recent.
Things weren't things weren't racial.
Yeah, like race.
They were tribal, obviously.
They were tribal. So if you were a Greek, they're not going to call you white. There's like, yo, you're a Greek. It's not like your physical appearance. So when we are dealing with words of white, it is often used as radiant, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're black either. So what we have is this. All we have to do is look at location. Okay. These are very hot, arid desert regions. Very hot, right? So if you go over there today, the demographics haven't changed that much. When you go into Gaza, you see black people, you see people literally with red skin, like what you see East Indians like that kind of Dravidian look, and you see more yellow-skinned Arab-looking people. I mean, that's basically the situation you're going to see in ancient Israel. You're going to see Dravidian, Indian-looking kind of people. You'll see Arab people, and you'll see black people, because that's the area and location. We also have to realize that Egypt was ruling in Canaan for what, like 500 years. So you have African people living in Canaan, I mean, so does this mean that all the Israelites were black? No, it doesn't mean they're all black, but they ranged from Indian looking kind of person to an Arab to a black person. So there are some so it would be some Jews were black as opposed to all.
Right. Now I need to build on what he just got finished saying, because he's referring to like the different nations. Like if you were referring to a white person, it would be like a Greek or like a Roman or something like that, right, Alvin? So if you go to 1 Kings chapter 11, they hate when I do this, because I always argue that the Israelites were a mixed multitude. As a matter of fact, when I debate that guy Tazariot in April in person, I'm going to be using his argument.
Yeah, they were a mixed multitude.
Right. In 1 Kings chapter 11, King Solomon, who was an Israelite, said this: but King Solomon loved many strange women, together with his daughter, with the daughter of Pharaoh, which was an Egyptian, and the women of the Moabites the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Zidonians, and the Hittites. Now, the reason why the Edomites are important because these are supposed to be the so-called white man, according to these One West camps. Okay. Now, the reason why God didn't want Solomon doing that was because he didn't want he didn't want Solomon to learn the heathen practices that they were doing, which is what he originally, which is when you read the chapter, you see that he eventually did that. He loved like 700. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines, and they turned his heart away from the Lord, and he started worshiping false gods. But that's not what's important. What's important for the sake of this conversation is that he intermarried with Egyptians, the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Zidonians, and the Hittites. And these are all different nations. And if he had kids with any of these other nations, then they would be considered Israelites, according to what Alvin said earlier, since they're going by the father, which would prove that the Israelites can't just be black. They have to be a mixed multitude of every nation in the world.
Yeah, that's ultimately what it is. I mean, you have even after the first century, you have a European diaspora, you have an African diaspora, you have an Asian diaspora. You know, you have Jews, of Indian Jews in Dubai. You even have Chinese Jews in Beijing, of some of them reaching there. So, and after a while, if you're living amongst a certain group of people, you're going to start looking like that group of people after a while. You know, you're going to start marrying them, having babies with them. So as of today, the statement that you must, but see, even within their own doctrine, not all the Jews are black, because, you know, they attribute Native Americans as being Jews, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, you know what I'm saying? So even within their thing, not all the Jews are black.
Now, Alvin, let me ask you something, Alvin. You're aware that the One Westers don't believe that Africans are Israelites, right?
Yeah.
Okay, where's Ethiopia?
Ethiopia is in Africa.
Okay. I always bring up the fact that the Ethiopian eunuch in the book of Acts actually came to Christ and he was saved, right? Mm-hmm. Now, they believe that if you come to Christ, that's supposedly you're saved. You keep the commandments and everything and whatnot. I always ask them, how come Ethiopia is not on their 12 tribe chart?
Yeah, because the chart, I don't know where, I mean, I know where it comes from, but now here's some history on the chart. There's actually a chart older than that. There's a European chart made by this guy, and it's kind of similar, where the Swedish people are the tribe of Gad, the Irish are Issachar. Have you seen that? And that's actually older than the Israelite chart.
No, I haven't seen that one. I like to take a look at that one.
Yeah, so the chart thing, in my opinion, I think it goes against scripture, because it says everybody is scattered. If you can locate each specific tribe, then, you know, they're located. They're not lost, you know. So yeah, I don't really subscribe to that.
So Steve, let's say that you're hold on, I got somebody calling me on my phone. Hold on a minute. So let's say Steve, you're talking to them and whatnot, and they claim that you're a reincarnation of a old slave owner. I'm gonna tell you how you can debunk that, because reincarnation is not taught in scripture. It's actually taught as being a false doctrine. The Bible says that it is appointed unto a man to die, and after that is the judgment. Ask them this question: if according to the Bible, that when somebody dies, that they're immediately going to be judged by God, where's the time for reincarnation?
Now again, this goes beyond them saying that we look like the plantation owners. They're actually saying that we are an actual.
No, you're General Lee.
Yeah, see, I didn't even know about that one. That's new to me.
Yeah, that's new to me too. So they believe that like white people are a reincarnation of. So what happened before the plantation owners? Like white people before then, who were they reincarnations of?
Maybe other members of the Edomites. You got to ask them, because this is a funny doctrine.
So what have I been? I just been recycled. What am I? I might as well just be what is a Hindu at that point?
Yeah, when you die, exactly. Is an Eastern religion that they're mixing into their doctrine. But here's the thing: when you die, you're not going to just die and be judged by God. They're saying the Bible is lying, because the New Testament supposedly isn't scripture. even though this is where they're getting their doctrine from. They believe that when you die, that when you die, you're going to be reincarnated into another white guy who eventually is going to have children in which they're going to enslave and rape your kids.
Oh no, I mean, it's going to be like a Doctor Who thing. I'm come back, you know, as a
Now, actually, what I find hopeful is that a lot of them are now saying Saudi Arabians are actually the Edomites, which would actually make more sense.
Okay, correct me if I'm right. Edomite is from Isu, and they're made red, right? I mean, Isu.
Yeah, and actually, Edomia, or Edom is actually located in Arabia. You know, the ancient place. So now a lot of them come to realize, okay, you know what? It's actually Saudi Arabians that are descendant of Esau, which would make, at least geographically, more sense than saying somebody from Sweden is an Edomite because he's white. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? It don't, you know, it's like that wouldn't make too much sense to me.
Yeah, so, well, I kind of see it from G-Man's thing. Is that it's a very convoluted doctrine they seem to have.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is now to the point to where Christianity is where you can go from Presbyterianism to Mormonism to Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, that's very vast differences between all those three doctrines. And now when you look at Hebrew Israelites, there's big gaps and differences between themselves in that. So I think now it's even difficult to say like the Hebrew Israelite doctrine. You know, it's almost like saying the Christian doctrine, because I mean, there's so many splinter groups. I mean, now you have some of them saying that the Australian Aborigines are the tribe of Reuben. Now, I don't know, you know, like, how do we come up with that? You know what I'm saying? So it has spread to the point of it has denominations now. Like, it's in that stage at this point.
Yeah, but I don't know any other Christian faction out there that suggests that only a certain race can be saved, right? Now, of course,
the neo-Nazis.
Well, that's okay. Well,
you know, they are Christian.
They are a Christian sect. Yeah, that is true.
Another argument that they
fair enough. What's that?
Another argument that they like to try to make is they try to say that Jesus is not the Messiah. That their Messiah, I guess the way they pronounce it in their language, is Yahawashai. Even though I love asking them to show me that in the Bible, and they can't do it.
The name.
What?
Yeah. So you gonna love this, Steve. This is what they do, because I've heard the atheist argument against why Jesus probably didn't exist, right? Now, what they say is this: the letter J has only been around for 400 years. Therefore, the person that we call Jesus, you know, didn't die for anybody's sins. He wasn't a real person. His name is Yahawashai, and this is a combination of them using I guess the Hebrew roots movements doctrine.
Using Paleo Hebrew letters and trying to render they basically take all the only two vowels they use are A and I, and they got rid of all the other ones. And,
all you got to do is point out to the Hebrew Israelites is that it was translated into another language and then transliterated into another language.
So let me ask you, G, do you think it's a possibility that years from now there might be an Afrocentric Bible that people will be like, this is the actual Bible? It's like, you know, some of the other. I mean, there's obviously so many different Bibles. Why don't they just create their own Bible?
Oh, that's gonna happen.
Yeah. It seems like it, right? I mean, it's not thing, right?
Now with the name, look. We could say I think most scholars agree his name would have been Yeshua, right? The Yahawashai thing. They're trying to. There's a couple of problems with that, because number one, the people living in first century Israel would not be speaking pre-exilic Hebrew, like pre-Babylonian Hebrew, because this is like over 500 years afterwards. It's like none of us are speaking Old English, right? Like, who speaks Victorian English today? Like, just regular, you know what I'm saying? So they wouldn't be, if they want to say Yahawashai is the Paleo Hebrew version of Yeshua or Jesus, they wouldn't have been using that in the first century, because most of them were speaking Aramaic. So it would have been Yeshua.
You
Yeah,
know,
we had on my
Well,
page.
yes, I mean, Yeshua.
Live chat seems to be agreeing with you, Alvin. So
Yeah, I don't know why they split hairs on that vocalization. I mean, Yeshua is basically a derivative of Joshua, and
Yeah.
salvation is of Yah. That's all it is. It's
Yeah.
it's
There's
just
actually
Yah.
4 people in the Bible with the same name.
now, now
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't want to try to sound like I'm trying to promote my YouTube channel, but
oh, wait,
but,
I put your link. The link in the G-Man's YouTube channel is in the video description. Go ahead.
yeah, every Monday when the G podcast is running, I get into a lot of details about what the Bible says about these topics. So if you guys watch the G podcast and you want to know how to debunk them on the law, how to debunk them, or how they know they're Israelites, or any of these topics that we're talking about today, and you want it in detail with all the verses and everything, watch the G podcast, because I go through all of that there. And a lot of them won't call it. And the proof of this is, and I'm not bragging or trying to be funny or anything like that. They don't want to call into the show a lot of times because I don't believe that they know how to deal with questions like, how do you know you're an Israelite? They don't know how to deal with questions like, if hell is a condition of the earth, why does the Bible describe hell as having hellfire? If heaven is a condition of the earth, why did Jesus ascend into heaven to another dimension? You know what I mean? And things like that. They're not prepared to deal with this stuff. And that's why a lot of them don't call in. But when they do, when it rains, it pours. And you can see how I handle them if you guys check me out on Monday.
So I got 2 questions on that. One, I mean, obviously we could do genetic testing, so we have some idea some of the lineage that people come from, right? And I don't know the accuracy of some of these ancestry.com things. In fact, it's funny. My roommate was just asking me the other day. His family wanted him to do a DNA test, and I guess there's different levels you can get, different packages you can get, and I don't. Well, I guess they put more detail in, the more you want to pay for it, I guess. And I don't know the accuracy of these things. I've heard different things. Some people said they're really basic. Some people said you get what you pay for. One of these days, I think we'll get some people that actually know genetics really well and have a hangout on that, because I'm curious and I don't know what to tell my roommate on it, because I did say I will ask people in the know about these home genetic tests from ancestry.com. But because of it, what's that, Jay?
I think Jade left a comment on my comment section saying something that she knew something about DNA and DNA tests on this matter. You might want to talk to Jade about it.
Yeah, you know what? I invited her
like
an hour or 2 ago, but she seemed to be unavailable right now. She wanted to come in. She was going to join us for this, but I think something came up. But if a person who says they come from a certain lineage in the Black Hebrew Isrealites, if they did do a DNA test and they found out, for whatever reason, I don't know how feasible this is, but if they found out there's no possible way they could be from that tribe, what would happen?
They're going to argue you tooth and nail. Oh, no, actually, no. They're going to argue faith at that point. They're going to say they believe by faith that they're an Israelite.
Even the whole idea of Hebrew DNA is problematic anyway, because we got examples like this during the Exodus. I'm pretty sure, like, if we believe the story is true, right? Hypothetically, if the story is true, because I know some people don't believe it, but if that story is true, some Egyptians came along with them, right? Some Midianites came along with them. So then they became a part of the citizens of Israel and Judea. So let's say that Midianite or the Egyptian, or even Cush, because Moses had a Cushite wife. So possibly even some Cushites went up in there. They eventually would be called Israelites, being that they're citizens of Israel. But if they have children and their descendants come back, and if they take a DNA test today, well, wait a minute, your patrilineage goes back to Kenya, so you can't be an Israelite. You see what I'm? But
yeah, exactly.
But technically, though, they went with the children of Israel in there and became citizens of the country. So the whole idea of DNA and Hebrew, and it's because they're a mixed multitude, it becomes very problematic to even use that as evidence. I mean, the best thing you could do is ballpark it. So they got this thing, the J marker, right? So if you have a combination of family tradition right? Okay, my family for so many generations have said we've been Jewish or Yehudi or whatever, and then you take a DNA test and you actually have DNA towards the Middle East, then you're kind of in the ballpark somewhere. Like, that's minimal evidence, but then that within itself doesn't prove it all the way. It just means that the probability is higher at that point.
You and I would have very different lineages probably, but we're both from Hebrew descent.
But see, here's the thing. Now, you would be Ashkenazi, right?
I'd be Ashkenazi.
Yeah, you're Ashkenazi. So, see, that's another thing. So they did a study on it, and what happened is they found out that I believe it's like 800. I want to say 800 AD. There was like 350 Jews that went into Europe, and they are the progenitor of all of you guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if they did find out that there are a few Ashkenazi Jews that do have patrilineage to the Middle East, but most of the Ashkenazi Jews mitochondrial DNA goes back to Europe. So basically what happened is you had a whole bunch of Jews going into Europe and mostly marrying European women. Right. We really don't have too many situations where there's European men marrying Jewish women. I mean, that's based off the DNA. I put Live Science did a article on that, and it would be the same as in Ethiopia. You know, if you look at Ethiopian Jews, they're going to start looking like the local population because they're having babies with the local population. No, so it's difficult to pinpoint.
I mean, it's really impossible, actually.
Now they do have this thing, the Kohang gene. You know what I'm saying? That it's the most common gene amongst people that say they're Jews. So I guess if you have that, then it heightens the probability even more if you have that particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
But most people that don't have that particular thing that call themselves Jews. So it's, even with DNA, it would be difficult to know as fact.
I think that comes back to what G-Man was saying. I mean, I think they would just put it as faith, because I don't think, from what it sounds like, these guys actually care one way or another about the facts or the truth or anything else. All they want is the people, for whatever their reason, to have this belief that Jesus was either black, or, as I found out just today, I didn't know this, that it was a different Jesus. I mean, literally. I mean, not just a different version of Jesus, but that the Jesus that most Christians believe came 2,000 years ago and all that stuff wasn't him. Wrong guy. I didn't have any idea about that.
There was another Jesus. Well, I guess, I mean, it was a common name.
Well, I mean, but G-Man was saying something along the lines of that they were Joshua or something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, they basically, it's basically the white Jesus picture has now become a deity into itself. Where it's it's almost like a demon now. White Jesus.
Yeah. No, I see them putting forth that thing as well. Yeah.
No. I mean, the white Jesus thing. What do you say?
Steve's an Ashkenazi Jew.
Yeah, I mean, my lineage goes. I mean, that's mostly, I think, I'm more, if I'm not mistaken, European, in France and a few other places. Most of my is mixed in with that, as well as Russian. My mom's side is more of a Russian Jew.
Oh, okay, yeah, Ashkenazi, yeah.
But the Ashkenazi, I mean, after the Holocaust and all that, I mean, a lot of them were wiped out. I mean, my lineage, I couldn't even trace.
Yeah, I think the term has actually changed. I know Ashkenazi usually referred to the German Jews, right?
Yeah, the German and France, right?
Yeah, but now it's expanded to other than Spain. I think they call the Spanish the Sephardic Jews, right?
Yeah, and that's why when you said it, I'm like, yeah, because my actual comes from Russian, so I think when people say that, it incorporates a lot of the of that area.
Yeah, that term has now expanded to European Jew in general, as opposed to just German Jew.
Yeah, I think originally it was more German or
Yeah,
French.
it was originally just.
That's why I find this interesting. But the Ashkenazi Jews is supposed to be part of the New World Order, and if Steve's a member,
Yes,
he's supposed to be rich, wealthy, person that's ruling the world and making all of the political decisions.
that's
Well,
I'm going to rule the world.
that
One day, you
was
hear
now.
that? G-Man just said I'm going to rule the world. Well, I didn't get on the whole Bitcoin phase, so I missed out on that. So
Now I will say, now hold on. Now there is an argument to be made, not necessarily about European Jews in general, but Zionists. Now, even other white Jews have spoken against Zionists, right? That, the mistreatment of Palestinian people and all that kind of stuff. Now when you're dealing with that specific thing, you can kind of make arguments for that.
yeah, the word Zionist has different connotations as well. I mean, obviously, it's not people use it more than just the nation of Israel.
Right.
So obviously, I think I've always stood by the position that I think there's atrocities committing on both sides from Israel and Palestine. But
right, exactly.
but I admit, I mean, I am pro-Israel. I mean, I'm very pro-Israel, but I'd have to acknowledge that there's been atrocities across the board.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There's a Zionist, at least how we're thinking of, at least how I'm thinking about it, wouldn't have said what you said. And you can go on YouTube and look at some of these people. These Zionists, and to some of the European Jews' credit, many of them have spoken against Zionists. So it's not really a racial thing at this point. I'm talking about people with the ideology that we can do anything to anybody in this land because it's our land, and it doesn't matter if they're here or not, because we've been given this by God and we have the right to do what we want to.
So it's nationalism by divine right.
Yes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
I
that's
don't hold to that at all.
Right. That's what I'm talking about with Zionists. And it's not all of them that say that either. Many of them be like what you said. You're like, hey, everybody is, there's fault to be given to both sides, right?
Mm.
But the Zionists is like, no, it's 100% their fault. This is our land, promised to us, and we are going to do what we want to.
Are you trying to show some
people with that?
Steve.
Yeah.
The next time you get those Hebrew Israelites in your room, you should tell them that you're an Ashkenazi Jew, and tell them what your beliefs are regarding the nation of Israel and who's there, and about the Holocaust. But if you're gonna do that though, you need to put on some extra thick skin, because they're gonna say some mean things. Some of them on the One West camps, they'll be like they were doing God a service. Hitler was doing God a service. The people that live there are land dwellers. You got some people obviously who are Holocaust deniers. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I probably have BHIs in here before. I don't remember any by name. Maybe a couple. I mean, I think Claim Your Inheritance is one, but I mean, very rarely do I get them in here. Now, I've been in one of their rooms. Actually, one person, One Drop Sunray, I think was his name, had invited me into a room one time, and they were all, and I mean militant type BHIs. I was the devil in that room. I try to explain things best ability. I had to realize
I'm so sorry I didn't get to see that.
I mean, One Drop still messes me this day. I think he felt really bad.
I would have loved to just sat in there and looked at that. That would have been amazing.
There was this one girl, I don't remember her name, but man, was she vicious. I was like, holy cow. I mean, yeah. So I can never say that I've ever come close to the amount of negativity and racism that any African American ever had to deal with in their lives. But just that 5-10 minutes I was in there, okay, it was probably a little longer. It was bad. I was like, holy crap, they really hate me just because of my skin color. This is pretty crappy.
But I'm telling you, Steve, if you said my great granddaddy was black, the whole attitude would have changed.
Wow, that's just weird. Well, I'm crazy. That's weird.
That's what I'm telling you. If you said your great granddaddy was a black man, then they would have started calling you brother.
What about a grandma?
You ever see Scholar Fiction's
not grandma?
Hey, Steve, does Scholar Fiction ever show you his ponage of them?
I know of it. I probably have seen it, but I've watched so many Skylar videos; they all blur anymore. So
it's on my YouTube channel, I think
I'll have to watch it again.
It was either on my channel or it was on the teacher's channel or whatever. But it was on there, and they was claiming that Skylar was a devil, and that he salvation was up for him and everything and whatnot. And then Skylar brought out his son and put his son in front of the camera. Oh no. Actually, no. They was condemning his children. And then Skylar put his son in front of the camera, and his son was black. Like his skin was really dark. And the guy couldn't say nothing to Skylar. It was hilarious.
Oh my goodness, I don't remember that. Somebody give me that video link. I want to see that.
It's on my YouTube channel. I'll get it to you.
Oh, it's on yours. Okay.
You can put it on your channel because it was hilarious. We were dying when it happened.
I really want to see that. That sounds epic.
Yeah.
Somebody has that. Somebody asked me to bring up who's Ghost Man. Anybody know who Ghost Man is? Somebody said to bring up the name Ghost Man. Does that ring any bells?
No, they're probably teasing me. I don't know. Whatever.
Okay, I have no idea who that is either. Jen,
you want me
do you have something to show?
Yeah, I was just going to show you because Steve, you mentioned about that you said because of this discussion you didn't know about the mention of another Jesus, and curiously, that's exactly what Augustine was saying. And so again, going back, 1600 years. So Augustine says, "But tell us the other thing you were saying you were going to tell us." Quote: "The prophet says God will come from Africa, and Africa is not a typo; it's an actual term. And now, of course, where the Africa is, there is Africa. Well, there's a fine testimony for you." So he's being really sarcastic here. "God will come from the Africa, and from Africa God will come. The heretics are announcing, now notice, another Christ." So he's calling these, what in his day, the Black Hebrew Israelites, he's calling them heretics, announcing another Christ who is born in Africa and goes through the world.
So there was another group with a similar narrative.
Sorry?
There was a group with a similar belief system.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were known as the Donatists, and so they had an Afrocentric perspective. So then he, once he provides his sarcastic remarks, he says, "I'm asking what it means God will come from Africa. If you said God has only remained in Africa, you would certainly be saying something shameful enough. But now you also say he will come from Africa." And then he says, "We know where Christ was born, where he suffered, where he ascended, and on he goes." So it's interesting that even back in the early church, you have this this Afrocentric perspective that in this case, Augustine of all people, like he's a pretty big individual. He himself says that they're heretics.
If you don't mind, can I play one of their videos so that people can, for the people who don't know nothing about these people? So that
I can't. I with all the YouTube stuff, playing another video is just I can't, unfortunately.
Okay. All right.
But I'll give you a video link. I'll put these video links in the video description when I'm done, so people can look at that afterwards. So let me give you a question. I mean, why is it just like one group doing something like this? I mean, how come you don't see popping up like Asian Jesus groups or something like that?
Actually, didn't the British people come up with this type of theology first, right? People from England started this, right?
Right. Yeah, I brought that up earlier. Their 12 tribes chart. They have a 12 tribes chart where it is Swedish people, I think, are the tribe of Gad. The Irish or Issachar. They got that kind of thing too.
Yeah, my bad. You did bring it up. So other people have tried to do this.
Yeah, and you know what? And to answer your question, Steve.
No. Wait. I think. No, one second. I think Alvin and I think they misunderstood your question, Steve. I think what Steve was trying to ask is, for example, in complete isolation to this debate, this discussion, what if there's some Japanese church somewhere, like in Japan, that's unheard of, that holds as themselves the descendants of the Israelites?
Yeah, and they worship a Japanese Jesus or something.
They have that.
They are the true Israelites.
Right. The British people started this first, and then didn't like the Chinese people follow suit.
So the British were the original versions of
the British people.
And then the Chinese.
Have you heard of the K-Fang? The K-Fang Jews in China. These are Chinese people that claim descent from the Israelites.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, K-Fang. The K-Fang.
Wow. That's amazing.
But I mean, I'm not even going to reject their claim because, see, we got to understand that. I mean, there was a diaspora. I mean, Jews went into Europe. I mean, where Steve's at. They went down to Africa, and they went into Asia. You know, there's a Jewish now the Jews in Mumbai is interesting because their story is there was a Jewish trade ship that crashed there, and they descend from the Jews off of that ship. So the couple of things interesting about them, they didn't have a Torah, so they didn't have all the books. They just remembered to keep the Sabbath. They remember some of the dietary laws and some of the holidays or whatever, and they remember Moses, right? But they didn't have a Torah, so they're basically just keeping the very basic aspects of Judaism. So they're in Mumbai, in India. So it's like it's spread all over the world.
Well, that's something I've learned. That's something new I've just learned. I didn't know that.
Yeah, matter of fact, let me put it because what's so funny? I just recently found out about these people a couple of days ago. Here, I'll put it in the side if you want to check it out.
Jade had asked, has anybody seen the buff Korean Jesus? I have actually seen that buff Korean Jesus. Have you guys seen that?
I put it on the side. Hey, Solo, you can check them out. I put it on the side there for you. It's kind of interesting, man. I didn't even know about this till like a week ago.
But one of the things I like to point out regarding the G podcast, and I try to get so many people to watch it and share it, is because it's to basically get the word out about these people and how to debunk them and what they believe and and how it's going to affect you. Because while Steve McRae lives in an area, where he doesn't have to deal with this nonsense, when you go to a major city like New York or Chicago or something like that, and it's an area where you got like a mixed group or whatever, you're going to run into those guys and you're going to see them. You know what I mean? And then you might be walking with your significant other, a family member that you care deeply with, and then they'll be condemning that person to hell because of that person's skin color. And I think it's important that you know how to react. Now, some people are smart. They just keep walking and don't pay them any mind.
You think that's the best course of action?
Yes and no. Yes, because you ain't giving them attention and eventually they'll leave. No, because they need to be shown why they're wrong. If there's somebody who's out there and you're equipped to just deal with one thing that they're saying, deal with that. When they start getting into other stuff you don't know nothing about, just walk away.
But if you're not familiar with it, what do you recommend?
I think, depending on the tone, because if they, and this would be not just with Hebrews, but any group, shouting stuff with a bullhorn, I'm not going to stop to talk to you, because it's just going to be the yelling match. So now I have to compete against your bullhorn. You know what I'm saying? And then and obviously these people,
have you run into them before, Alvin? I mean, do you actually run into them in your, I don't want to say day to day.
Now here in Chicago, they don't do it like that. The Hebrews here, they live relatively normal. You go down, I mean, that kind of phenomenon is more prevalent in New York. Here in Chicago, they go to, they have their temple and, they go there. You don't really see them. Now, I mean, every once in a while, you might see a few random GMS people popping up, but they got a very small presence here. And, it's not as prevalent as it is in New York, where it's consistent. Like, they're going to be over there every Saturday or at these specific spots. We don't really have that over here.
They got them in Australia?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
If there's black people there, or Native American Indians or Hispanics, they'll go there. But they really believe that they're only supposed to be preaching to one nation, and that's Israel, which is ridiculous. Because by the time you get to Matthew 28, in the last couple of verses, it says that Jesus commissions his disciples to make disciples of all nations, not just
every creature,
not just one. So it's just so many different ways to just shut them down before the war even starts. It's not even funny. They hate it when I show up because I know what they're going to say now. So I let them talk, let them think they're convincing me. And I'll be like, okay, that's true. Then answer this verse. And after that, you're cool and they kick you out.
How often do you guys run into Hebrew Israelites who, because I think of the Hebrew Israelite thing, I think of it all as like a conspiracy theory, but how often do you guys run into Hebrew Israelites who also hold to other conspiracy theories, like they also believe the earth is flat, or they think that there's some type of mass conspiracy with the Illuminati or something?
Well, that's all of them. The one Westers is pretty much all of them. The one Westers, I run into them every Saturday. And sometimes I walk past them, and then they'll say things to try to start me up to argue with them, and I'll just keep walking. And then during the week, a lot of them walk past my job, and they'll walking. I remember one guy I saw walking past my job, and I stopped and I said, "Hello, let me ask you a question." He didn't know who I was, and I told him what my name was. The guy got on the phone and said, "Hey, guess who I just got finished talking to?" And just started walking away. It's funny because all of their leaders are telling them, particularly in Israel Israel United in Christ, the ones that wear the purple. Nathaniel, their leader, told them to ignore me, Vocab Malone, and a lot of the other show squad members.
Now, see, that's what makes me uncomfortable. Look, if I invite challenge, right? Okay, you're saying what I'm saying is wrong. Okay, let's see. And you know what? I might be wrong. So let's deal with this. You know what I'm saying? And then, but you gotta, like, I'm not gonna. No, I don't want to talk. Like, I don't like that in general. I mean, I don't, just beyond the Hebrew Israelite thing. Look, if you're making claims, and you feel you're right, you should be confident to anybody who wants to challenge you. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
Exactly.
And then if you're proven wrong, guess what? It's a win-win, because then you'll stop saying the wrong stuff.
The only thing I have to say is that the BHIs obviously have been doing this a very long time, and as G-Man pointed out, they're probably going to take what most people say and change it. I mean, and throw it back on, like the whole hair, wool, that kind of stuff. So unless somebody's familiar with it, I don't know if they're going to be able to like really argue against them in any efficient.
Yeah, well, you definitely have to know something.
Yeah.
You have to be knowledgeable of the Bible to argue with them. Now, and to their credit, they do look like, here's the thing. And when you go to most, and I don't want to generalize because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Christians that read, but I went to a church about 2 years ago with my sister, and the preacher literally said, "Hey, look, don't worry about going into the Greek. Don't worry about going into the Hebrew. John 3:16 is all you need to be saved. Don't worry about all that other stuff. Just work on being another human." So I'm like, now wait a minute. That's like, you're just basically saying, hey, don't go out there and study. Just do that. So I will give them credit for that. They actually go out and study beyond just the regular stuff. Now they come up with some wild conclusions, right? But they put in the work of study, which I think is somewhat lacking in the general Christian church.
Mm.
Right.
And
it didn't used to be that way.
No, you're right.
We're gonna do a quick, if there's people in the live chat that want to get any questions out, we're gonna do a quick Q&A, and then we're gonna be kind of wrapping this up so people can watch this in its entirety and get something out of it, because I think this is probably the best primer we've had on BHI to date. Matter of fact, I don't think there is any other one. So I think it's beneficial that people are able to watch this at least in 1 or 2 sittings rather than having a 4-hour hangout. So if there's people in the live chat, go ahead and ask your questions now. We'll try to get a couple of them in, and if not, then we'll kind of go from there. So GY, while they're figuring out any questions, you got any other things you want to wrap up with this?
Yeah, if you guys want to get the best details about their history, 2 of the guys that I recommend who knows a lot about their history, besides Alvin, obviously, is to go to Faithful to God. He knows. I mean, honestly, sometimes he sounds like he knows their history better than they do. Like, he knows how they started. He knows the individual camps. He knows what their individual doctrines are. He knows the differences between the One West and the and what we call the moderates. So I would definitely check him out. And then the other person I would say is either G Consciousness or Vocab Malone. If you guys check out their YouTube channels.
Oh, I should have got G-Con in here. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I there's a lot of other people I did invite, but I know they had to work. Emperor Atheist had to work, and a few other people. I have D's Productions and Psycho Atheist I invited, but he didn't get the message. So
Psychopath?
Yeah, psychopath atheist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me and psychopath atheists are neighbors. Actually, we live very close to each other. I mean, very close to each other.
Yeah, I go say hi to him on his feed quite often. Actually, he kind of has a little call-in type thing that he runs.
Yeah, he's got some really extreme views about some
Oh,
stuff.
dude, there is nothing like a good psychopath rant. Oh man, I'm telling you, he got a voice and he's got a skill. He really does. So,
He
but
lets loose, man.
but
He lets you know what he believes.
oh yeah, yeah. Have you? I've luckily I've known him for a very long time. I've never been on the other end of that, but I know a lot of people that have. I don't envy them.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I felt it. He's came out before.
What would happen if him and Gus ever had a rant off with each other? That would be like the end of the universe or something. You know?
I feel sorry for the moderator.
Oh my goodness, that would be. Yeah, think about that. Can you imagine? Because they're both epic with their tongues. I mean, they slice and dice, and can you imagine this going after each other? That would be like the event of the century. But they get along, so obviously it wouldn't. But wow,
Steve, you got to get AIU in your room and psychopath atheist in here.
Oh, by the way, did you see that he actually took a clip from one of your hangouts and used it as an introduction?
I'm sorry, say that again.
He took a clip from one of your hangouts with you, me, and Positively Godless and put it as the intro to one of his videos.
Why, AIU or
Yeah, you. You didn't know that? You didn't see that?
No, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah. So, so whatever on that. I don't know. I have nothing against AIU. I'm not just a big fan of his videos, but I mean, I would give the guy a chance. I mean, I've never talked to him directly. I know a lot about him. We have a lot of unusual things. People, and he knows who I am. But I mean, maybe I've been unfair to him. I don't know. I can't really judge him if I haven't talked to him. I'm only going by what I've seen, right? So, yeah. Well, I mean, what is your impression? I mean, just out of curiosity.
My impression of AIU, the same thing I've been saying about AIU. I think AIU is a racist, although that's debatable now because I went to his YouTube channel and talked to him, and he just seems to be more. Okay, like the same way the Black Hebrew Israelites are very interested in what's going on in the Black community, he seems to be very interested in what's going on with the white community. So
yeah, I'll say this: I had that impression as well. I don't know whether it's true or not, and I'm not going to malign the guy. And next time you talk to him, let him know I'm more than willing to give him a platform. Matter of fact, if you remember Nevin Noor, she was supposed to bring him on one time, and they were discussing that for quite some time. And he was going to come on here, and we were going to have a talk. So he definitely knows who I am in the Great Debate community. It didn't come to fruition, but if you ever talk to him again, I will be happy to give him a platform and a benefit of the doubt because I don't want to malign the guy. If he's not like that, then I think it's wrong to insinuate somebody's racist when they're not. It's just he has that vibe, especially with his videos are so on that border, right?
I'm gonna put something here in the chat. I don't want to say this out loud, so
okay.
Here.
Okay, on that note, which is not going to go off on air, we're going to end this. I want to thank everybody, Wayne for dropping by, General Han Solo, Alvin. Good seeing you again, my friend. You need to drop around more often.
Most def.
Dude, you were always one of my favorite people back then, and I'm sorry that people don't know who you are now. You need to come by more often.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that, man.
We used to have fun. And G-Man, I'm going to give you the last word because I really thank you for coming in and explaining this. I do know a lot more about this now than I did going in. I found out a lot of things I did not know before, and that to me is a productive hangout. So if anybody that watches this, anybody in the live chat gains something from this, if they have a better understanding, whether they agree with BHIs or don't agree with them or whatever, leave a message in the comment section. This takes a few minutes to upload because it has to render, but it should be pretty quick. Just come back and leave a message, and then share this video too. Please share.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Else?
Yeah, I'll be sharing this video. That's for sure. The last word is this.
Okay.
If you want to learn more about what the Hebrew Israelites are all about, check out the G podcast on Monday, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And I usually spend at least 2 hours, as well as giving people the opportunity to call into the show and ask questions with what they believe and how to debunk them. And I hope somebody got something out of this that they didn't know besides Steve. And you guys have a good day.
Yeah, because I watch those, and now the next time I watch it, I'll know what the heck's going on. So So have a safe New Year's, guys. Tomorrow night, drive safely. Don't drink and drive. I'm very much pointing out that message right now for a variety of reasons. But if you go out and drink, make sure you have a designated driver. And we want to see you back here in 2018 because the Great Debate community has huge plans. So thank you, guys.